already here, this is your sneak preview that Elvis is one of our guest judges who is representing the Eager Beavers Reviewer Network.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks for being here, Elvis.
Of course. Anytime.
While we're hanging out, do you want to just say a couple of words about Eager Beavers, how you joined, what your network does, if anyone else is interested in joining, if you're accepting new members, and anything else?
Of course. I'd gladly say a few words about this. I was actually one of the founding members of Eager Beavers, Socio Crypto has started the network a couple of weeks ago, and what our specialty is that we try to give a sort of helpful feedback in the reviews that we do. At least that's the goal. So we don't just try to evaluate the dashboards, but try to make a helpful and constructive criticism, even if a harsh one, of the dashboards that we review. So this is the mission that we try to help improve others in this work.
That's amazing. Great to hear that you're one of the founding members of Socio and what your mission is. And that even if you are direct with your feedback, it's all for the good of helping analysts improve. That's really cool to hear. How big is your network, would you say?
10, 12 people at the moment. We are looking for other members, but we are not rushing it. So if somebody is interested, we'd be glad to have a look at you. But it's a small network.
Gotcha. That's really cool. It's been, I have to say, it's been a pleasure to watch networks like Eager Beavers be spun up recently and bloom and have their own missions and kind of double down on those. And there's a variety of networks. Some of them are reviewer, like Eager Beaver, and some of them aren't. But reviewer networks have been like one of the more interesting ones for me personally to observe.
What other networks types would you say there are, and why are they less interesting?
Not to say anyone's less interesting. Everyone's interesting in their own way. So networks in general are like an organizing principle for kind of an on-chain proxy for any organizing principle, right? So it can be, and there are networks of analysts. There's of course Pine Analytics. There's other networks of analysts. I think there are reviewer networks. There are networks of folks with specific skill sets. There are networks of networks. So and kind of anything in between. So it's very, very broad. But the ones that kind of I've seen take off so far are the ones with the clearest use case, especially that interact with the Metrics app, right? So reviewers is one of them, and analyst is going to be one that also will kind of start to get more use with Metrics app V2, which is coming out soon to you. It's been teased in a couple of community calls, and we'll see it come into fruition really soon. So stay tuned for that. But so far the networks that have to me I've kind of seen start to flourish are the ones that have a clear use case. So it's kind of interesting. To add to that, I think any network can kind of make their own mission and use case and double down on that. So I'm looking forward to see what blossoms out of there. And I see we have Sunslinger here while we're chatting networks. So I'm gonna get him on stage.
Hi, GJ.
Hey, GJ. And for anyone who's already here, the early birds, I've dropped a link for you all in the chat so you can grab some Xmetric. If you come to our events often, you know that we like to send some your way for being here live. So be sure to grab it. The forum closes usually after the event, shortly after the event. So don't hesitate and fill it out right now. It's we send you 10x metric your way for every live event that you show up for because we appreciate you. All right, let's see if GJ is able to come on stage. All right, welcome. Right, well, we're settling in and we're figuring out our technical setup. I'm going to also drop in the chat the most recent MetricsDAO reviewer rubric, which is called Reviewer Vision and Strategy, because it has some of those bigger picture pieces as well. So if you haven't yet checked it out, check it out. This is our default evaluation criteria set right now. That's what many, if not most, if not all, reviewer networks use. But we're also really eager to see if some reviewer networks may eventually want to propose their own criteria or kind of fork this and spin it off, or propose improvements, or just kind of completely take off on their own and say this is what we think is the good set of criteria, this is what makes sense, and this is what we're going to use when we review. All right, I have up on screen our reviewer, vision and strategy, and also, like I was saying earlier, the default reviewer rubric. So I'll drop it again in the chat here if you want to check it out. And this is what most of our networks use right now. We're also encouraging networks to, go off and develop their own and improve and fork and just completely reinvent from scratch if they're so inclined. But this is, I think, what we're using for the most part today as well. And yeah, I'm going to start throwing some dashboards up on screen. Thank you everyone who submitted your dashboards for the judges.
And while Marina loads a dashboard, I will remind folks, if you want to be part of our reviewer network, reach out to one of our existing networks. You can find them listed on Gitbook, and express your qualifications. And if you don't get in, start your own. Find a couple friends whose judgment and skill you trust. Let me know. We'll get you set up. We'll steer some reviews your way. If you do well, we'll send more reviews your way. So do good work, get paid, get the opportunity to do more good work. It's not super complicated, but we do want everybody to know that option is open. We're proud of our reviewer networks, Eager Beavers, Watchmen, Celisal, but there's always room for more. So just making sure that folks know you have the opportunity to do that if you want. With that, Marina, over to you.
Amazing. So I have our first dashboard up on screen. Thank you, Considered Finance, for submitting this cool Dune dashboard, and I'm going to drop it in the chat. All right. Elvis, DJ, anyone want to start off on this one?
I have a brief summary of it, but I didn't go real deep into this one. Should I read that?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, just a moment, I have to switch. So, on the whole, we consider this a very good high-level dashboard. It introduced the protocol clearly and usefully. However, the author could add a short introduction to the dashboard to highlight its aims, explain the methods and the data used, and present its organizational structure. The table titled Borrowers is about borrower collection, but it could be restructured to take into account borrowers with multiple collection borrows. It is great that the future plan is stated. However, the tone of the conclusion is slightly biased in favor of the protocol itself. it would be better if the pros and cons were placed together. The statements were always supported by data and analysis presented in the dashboard. So on total, our network have reviewed this as an 8, with insights at 1.75, completeness at 2, visuals at 2.25, and professionalism at 2.
Say more there, Elvis, for a sec. Eager Beavers is using the 12-point scale in that case, is that correct? And then do you convert into the Metrics app when you do Metrics app reviews?
At the moment, we are using the 12-point scale, correct. And of course, if needed, we are converting to the 100-point scale.
Gotcha. You said 5 or 12? Sorry, broke up there for a sec.
12.
12. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you, really quick before kind of both of us also jump in, would you mind kind of talking about why that scale that kind of MetricsDAO has started with is more appealing to y'all, and yeah, any reasoning that makes most sense?
No, not really. I think we've just stuck with it for the time being before moving on.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's valid. That makes sense. I think GJ has a contrary view on the introduction and overview of the Blend protocol. GJ, do you want to say something about that?
I do, yeah. Let's debate it a little bit. We see this in a lot of dashboards, and this is something that's changed, in my view, since the early days of when we were all, doing bounties. Or, well, you all, I wouldn't say I've never done a bounty. I've never been paid for doing a bounty, let's put it that way. But since the early days of the program, this has shifted. When someone is looking at your dashboard, the top of it is going to be the most important space you have to make an impression. People can form their impressions really quick. You don't want the first thing they look at to just be something that's straight copy pasted from a website. It gives you a chance of getting flagged for plagiarism, for starters, but more importantly, that space is really, really valuable. If you're going to do that, include a link to the protocol or put it down in the bottom, put it with your methodology section. I would not personally put that all the way up top. Does it make the submission worse? Not necessarily, but it does limit how good it can be. It limits the impact that it can really have.
Elvis, any thoughts?
I generally agree. So what I have to add to this is that this dashboard in particular was reviewed by Social Crypto. Maybe he would be a better person to comment on this one. So
yeah, if he rolls in, we'll debate it. I will say, I know some people say everybody has to use exactly the same criteria. I don't believe that. I am comfortable if really talented reviewers come to somewhat different conclusions. If people are coming to wildly different conclusions, then maybe we have a problem. But not everyone is going to rank everything exactly the same way, and that's okay. That said, as a general principle, I think I'm going to stick to what I'm saying here. You're ultimately trying to make something that really has impact on people, and something like this where it's, you're burning space right away on a cookie cutter explanation of Blend. Now, Blend, I'm familiar with it. It's not as prominent a project as, some of the OGs, Ethereum, Aave, whatever. But still, especially if you're analyzing something that's trending, people should already have heard of it. So my point of view here is if you can save that space for something that's super important, and you can keep a project summary, but don't make that the most important thing that people read first. Yeah, similar to what Playwo was saying, if it's something that no one has heard of, if it's trending, if it's new, Rollbit or Pepe in the early days or whatever, and you think there's a decent chance a lot of your audience hasn't heard of it, then it's fine. But still, in that case, I think I would keep it really short and link to that project's Twitter or link to their page or whatever. Space is important. You only get one chance to make a first impression.
Especially in the Dune format where there are not multiple tabs. So there,
right. If you're using the website and you have the opportunity to take advantage of tabs, like tab dashboards make this much easier for sure.
But yeah, I agree. I think the top of the page should contain your most important conclusions and why it's worth reading the whole thing.
I did think going through this one, they do a good job with the conclusion and also with, hey, next steps. If we wanted to do something in the future, what would we do? Here's what else we could look at. That's great because it gives other people the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper. It gives them ideas for a future analysis. So I thought this was well done. It's brief, it's succinct. The conclusions are good. It tells me, hey, here's what I would look at. If I want to look at where additional growth is coming from, if I want to know what blend is doing well and sounds smart at New York cocktail parties, I have something to hang my hat on, which is nice.
Yeah, Elvis, I want to double click on something you said or something you voiced from Socio's review, who is here, by the way. So, Socio, if you want to jump in at any point, you're absolutely welcome to. But something you said, Elvis, was evaluating the dashboard on how unbiased it is and whether it's kind of just giving props to the protocol or stepping back and showing kind of the pros and cons of the data. I kind of think that's really cool and that's really interesting and valuable. I don't think it's in any of either the previous evaluation criteria or the current one. But correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe that should be added. What do you think? What do you both think?
I think generally. Excuse me. I think generally it's valuable as a reporter to be unbiased. However, usually this does not really come into play because as general analysts we aren't really feeling a project. We don't have a side. So, but as a general value, it's good, but I think this would come into play in more professional settings when it might come up that the analyst was more generally biased.
Yeah, there's no problem with displaying a project in a favorable light. There's absolutely no problem with that. And if you're picking a project that you like and you want to analyze it that way, great. And honestly, we don't see much of this. Staying out of the Pepe hype shilling bullshit is important. But other than that, let the data tell the story that it tells and put your own spin or gloss on the story that it tells. That's fine. We don't all have to be perfectly neutral about everything.
I think I would understate the converse. If it is obviously shilling a project, then I would definitely degrade it in the evaluation. But unless it is obvious, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I guess we're all obviously here because we are to some extent Web3 maxis, and I think there's nothing wrong about that. I agree with that, DJ. I think as long as the piece of analytics and the output and the dashboard still comes through as rigorous and unbiased, and as long as it is that, then the rest is fair game. I kind of agree with that assessment. All right.
Let's keep rolling.
GJ, before we keep moving, what would you score this dashboard in the stellar through spam scale?
I put this at a 4. It didn't quite reach stellar for me, but it's very close.
Amazing. Thanks, Considered Finance, again for submitting. Hope you get a chance to hear the feedback, and let's keep rolling. We've got Mariah Carey with staking activities on Flow. Love that username, by the way. All right. Do either of you want to jump in first? Elvis, DJ?
Elvis, you're the guest. By all means, lead it off.
Great. So let me look at my notes here. So and also the dashboard itself. So if we look at the introduction part, I noted that the insight and the conclusion that the author draws from the data, the insight is a conclusion that you draw from the data, ideally while pointing out its significance and context. The way he or she is using the terms average on the second tab and volume is a misnomer in this case, because the way he, I think, said average volume, while this was an average volume per staking transaction, I think, or average size of a staking transaction. Also, max volume is obviously a misnomer. Another thing is that I have a pet peeve, which I usually state with if I review, that if dashboards don't contain proper y-axis labels, or if the labels are not meaningful or can be guessed from the title. So that's something that I usually note. It is also a problem here. On the second tab, he uses the term consistently growth rate, and it is not obvious, but if we look at the query, it turns out that this is the daily growth, daily change in percentage terms. It's at least here, for example, it would have been helpful if in the y-axis there was a percentage value or a more clear name for this so-called growth rate. Other comments in the second tab's insights, is stated that 2.1 billion, indicating a significant level of commitment by users to stake their tokens. Here, the question would be compared to what? So, what is the total amount of flow in circulation? For reference, according to CoinGecko, there is 1 billion of total circulating supply and 1.4 billion total supply. So it would be helpful if we could compare this number to something. Also, when calculating the amount of stake tokens at any one time, it would be helpful to not just see what was the volume, what was the daily and cumulative volume, but we could compare it to the circulating supply. What is the percentage of the circulating supply that is being staked at any one time? That would be a useful number to look at. On this staking an opportunity was missed, for example, that there is obviously very large spikes in the daily stake volume. We could ask the question, or the analyst could have asked the question, why is this in the third daily chart, and maybe explain these very large daily volumes. And yes.
Yeah, thank you for the detailed review of this. What would be the score for this dashboard, in your opinion?
This is just the first tab. I have some detailed feedback for the rest of the tabs. The overall dashboard would score somewhere around 7 or 8 in the 12-point scale.
Gotcha. GJ, any thoughts, agreement, disagreement? I know you're typing in chat as well.
Yeah, my computer speaker is making weird spitting noises, so technical woes continue. If we've got detailed comments, then let's go through the rest of the tabs. I gave this a 60 out of 100, and I'm happy to break down that further. But if we're lucky enough to have guests, let's prioritize their feedback.
Okay, so another one of the interesting insights that could have been drawn is that in terms of nodes, a single node is dominating. So the amount of flow that is being processed that was processed by a single node was not calculated. But if we look at the node values at the bottom of this tab, about it's orders of magnitude larger than the next larger one, or 2 orders of magnitude larger. So this raises the question if flow is centralized, and is this centralization a timely effect, or maybe the dashboard could have been wrote in this direction if it was noticed, or so is this a timely effect? Because by the volumes, we could see that there were very large deposits around December and March of 2020 and 2021. Maybe this centralization was the case at that time, but the situation has changed then. However, it would have been interesting to see.
Awesome. Any thoughts on the remaining tabs, or kind of any overarching ones? I know Sosie also shared the kind of overall commentary. Anything else to add, Elvis?
Let's go to the next tab, the on-stake tab. It's a problem that the introduction is rather boilerplate. As a general problem for both of the tabs, or all 3 tabs, because the next one will have the same structure. It has a sort of chart flood, too many charts with too little added information. Yes, and
all right. Claim rewards.
And generally, the insights are in all 3 tabs are the same format of reading off of the data is followed, and as I put it in a personal message to the author that the users are also capable of reading the data, and the added value should be added by the analyst by syncing. So this is somewhat missing here. And also, if the format reflects that the author wasn't thinking about the data, then he should not expect the reviewer to give too much thought to his conclusions either. So this kind of predetermines the outcome if we are looking at this from this dashboard competition standpoint.
Yeah, what you're saying, Elvis, to double down on that, perhaps a bit of intentionality is what would really take this dashboard from, solid, good level to really stellar. I wrote in the chat, filtering out some of the data and really focusing on making the rest of it shine and tell the story and kind of present the package and grab that attention from the get-go, like DJ was saying. Anything else to add? Elvis, DJ, anybody else? We have Socio still here, I think, and anyone else in the chat or in voice.
Let's keep going.
All right. Thanks again, Mariah, for submitting your dashboard. We look forward to seeing you grow. We appreciate a dashboard that we appreciate you being open about being a beginner and wanting to improve. Like, this is what we're here for. We appreciate this. We're gonna watch you grow and be amazing. All right, next up, we've got Leeway with Uniswap. Elvis, take it away.
Yes. I really liked the beginning of the dashboard, the introduction. I think it had clear definitions and on what the dashboard wanted to achieve and how. Going on to the next step on users on Ethereum. Here the methodology, as TJ also likes to point out, is a little in a too prominent placement. It underutilizes this real estate. Also, especially considering that in the sentence that using feature engineering some additional variables that could have analysis were added. Well, yeah, this is what we do. This need not be stated. So I think this area would have been better used for the TLDR section. There is some technical problems with the query itself. If we look at the query, the title says of the first value, this unique new users on Uniswap in the past 1 year. It says new users. However, the way it's constructed, it won't pick up new users. It will just pick up unique users because the date cutoff was the date filter was put in a where statement instead of a qualify statement. So that's a problem. So it is not exactly talking about what it thinks or wanted to talk about. If we go on to the third part, or this age of new addresses on Uniswap, this will, by construction, bias the result, because since we will include as users older than 1 year mostly in the 9 to 12 months bin, and we will mostly get real new users in the 1 to 3 and newer beans, but the oldest bin will just catch all the regular users. So that's an unintentional biasing of this graph. And interestingly, he seems to have noticed the problems in the fourth graph, because he used a different CTE for applying the time filter in the where statement, which will act as a qualify statement if he uses its subsequent CTE. So this was actually correct and did what he wanted to. And I also noticed some missed insight opportunities from his insights, that he states what's on the graph, but does not explain the features, like why was the new user volume peaking when it did. There is also, interestingly, Synthetix new user volume was peaking at June, in June and in the 3 subsequent months, but practically disappeared afterwards. That's also interesting. That could have been noted, or also that Dodo went the way of the Dodo after September and haven't really appeared afterwards. So if we are bringing up all the protocols and their volume, then we might as well notice the interesting features. So these are just some suggestions. Other than that, on the third tab, new user activity on other chains. Well, not only are we largely copying the methodology part, it is also inaccurate, since we are now not talking about Ethereum, as he says in the last sentence. The technical problem with the new users in the first section remains. He did not notice that, even though he apparently did it right for the last graph by protocol, but that may have been an accident. Other than that, the summary in the fourth tab is nice. It does highlight his most important conclusions. Despite the inaccuracy, I would rate this dashboard between around a 9.
I was lower than that. I took points off for accuracy. I took points off quickly for there are a number of typos. And then I also took points off for data visualization. So just to quickly translate in the old scale, this would have been a solid 7 for me. Interesting that we disagree a little bit further. As I said earlier, that's fine. Not everybody has to agree all the time. That's why it's helpful sometimes to have multiple reviewers. It's also why it's helpful to have a network. You have people to kick stuff around and talk with.
The way
I wanted to add again, like the first thing I'm looking at is what is Uniswap? If you're in crypto and you don't know what Uniswap is at this point, then I'm not quite sure what to say. But this dashboard is really missing out on some and I don't want to be overly critical of it. As you pointed out, there's definitely a lot of good here, but definitely missing out on an opportunity for better data visualization to really drive home some of these differences between the providers here between Optimism, between Uniswap. Man, I'm practically incoherent, guys. It's too early for me. But please, 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 please don't waste your first shot to impact a reader on a copy pasted, what is Uniswap. Save that for a different section. I see chat is, at least Mark, you agrees with me. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the list of things that BitBoy doesn't know could sink a ship. But that was my primary critique. Other than the Uniswap introduction, like the insights here are actually compelling and could be really useful. It's the type of thing that a mass audience might appreciate. But the data visualization here, there are a number of things that I would improve to try to drive home some of those conclusions. That was my major takeaway. Marina, curious for your thoughts.
Thanks both for your opinions and thoughts. I think I want to, just the one thing that is left for me to kind of go in a little bit deeper is what DJ mentioned in the chat about the methodology section. And kind of thinking about with methodology as well as kind of with other sections and underlying thought process of who your audience is, right? So the methodology section in particular, kind of deciding where to put it, what to say there, to use it at all, is kind of, for me, is about kind of thinking who will be reading it. And either it's an analyst, really another analyst trying to learn something, or it's a general audience member being like, what did they say when they meant users, or what they meant active wallets or new wallets. And then also the reviewers, as kind of, they're probably looking at some of that as well, and you have to think about that. But with all of those said, so there's probably things to say in the methodology that aren't what is the table that you used, but more like, if somebody's reading this is something is unclear, what is that I have to explain? If I made an analytical choice, what is what was that, and will my audience care? So for that's kind of those are my reflections for the methodology section for this dashboard, and kind of more broadly as well. Like, I would still probably, as an analyst, put it somewhere, but either or put a little bit later in the dashboard, a little bit kind of not buried, but just the fact that it's there, but it's not prominent. Say some of those things, thinking about who will care about those things, and yeah. And I think that's an overarching thing, right? Like, when we think about these dashboards, we think about who's going to read it and who's going to care and what they're going to want to know. And for this dash, it's echoing what both of you have said, with maybe less on what is Uniswap and more on what is the story I uncovered here, what is my data showing, kind of doubling down on that throughout, like from the beginning to the charts to the conclusion. Anything else we want to say on this dashboard, or do we move on?
Let's see if we can get one more in before we wrap up.
Let's do this. We've got Cookie with Ethereum NFTs. Elvis, do you want to jump right in?
I'll jump. Just a really quick comment. I actually really like this start. What is the goal of this dashboard? Well done, Cookie. If I had a cookie, I would give it to you. All right, Elvis, take it away.
Oh, go ahead first. I think I'm
cool. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Marina, if you want to scroll down for me, I seem to have started something in chat with cookies. This is less so. Cookie, you're sort of walking into the discussion we've had for the last hour. I'll just reiterate briefly because everyone else has heard it. Your real estate is really important for your reader. Think about what the reader is really here for. I'll just continue to encourage people to put the NFT section, methodology section, anything that's a general overview, not on the first tab. I like what the goal of the dashboard is because it helps orient the reader. Why am I here? Why am I reading this? What am I going to find out? But anything else like separate tabs, folks, for information that you're drawing from other places. I do love, like, I mean, the color scheme here was great. A lot of just the simple aesthetic things, like really big text right off the bat, clearly defined boxes. This stuff isn't, you know, necessary to doing killer analysis, but it really helps the reader, and loved it for that reason. Let's keep going.
All right. So should I offer my comments now? Or?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I also liked visually the whole thing. So, and it was a good intro, a good methodology, and it was visually appealing. On the second tab, I usually go like this, tab by tab. He used the term sales. This left me thinking for a second. Maybe a number of sales transactions could have been clearer, but this is really a minor comment. On the third tab, detailing the top collections.
Did we lose Elvis?
No, I'm here.
Are you still there? Okay.
So it was, I found it interesting that he grouped the ape and no ape groups together. I've written that it might have been interesting to state in the title of this cookie or this donut chart that we are talking about the volume here. That's also a minor thing. That anything that makes your reader makes it easier for your reader to more quickly process what you are trying to say is worth it. So it's less cognitive load is better. Again, yes. So the third tab. So here about the insights, I realized that the author stated that he wants to be beginner friendly, but he is getting to a point, and that the explanations is just saying things like that we are missing a third metric that we haven't talked about yet, so it don't really offer any actual insights into the data that we are visualizing. Also on the third tab, there are minor issues like using the same color multiple times on the graph, like green and blue, which makes it harder to distinguish what data we are actually talking about. Also, there was a missed opportunity to talk about like what we are seeing, like why were the Mutant API Club sales pumping? Did they have an event at this time frame between April apparently, and their jumps and their sales numbers were jumping, and also it might be helpful to compare this value. Is this a normal fluctuation on a larger time scale, or is this extraordinary? Also in this first tab, there was some inconsistency, not just in the colors, but the first two charts are of the projects that are top 5 by volume. However, the third chart is about projects that are top 5 by price. That's why Mineable Punks is getting into the picture, whereas it was not. Sorry. Sorry, I just noticed that I'm wrong about this one. It's just the colors. And getting back to this style of surface level insights and conclusions. In the conclusion part, we are basically just restating the intent of the dashboard without actually concluding any of the findings, which is less than optimal. Other than that, I think the dashboard did relatively well what it wanted to do. So I would say that its accuracy and insights were good. The visualization, for the visualizations, I would deduct some points. And also for the professionalism, but I would say that this is somewhere between a 10 and 11 on the old scale.
Yeah, I put this at a 10 on the old scale as well. Again, this is like right on the edge of stellar, but I have a very high bar for stellar. So I just wanted to call out, making it easy on your reader is one of the things I would, if I were grading, I would give extra points for. It's part of the extra points on the rubric. It's also just good practice. It really, really helps people connect with your analysis and share it. And so I really wanted to call out, I know that takes effort. So props for putting in the effort there.
Big +1 on this one. If you've seen the dashboards that we looked at today, if you kind of see a lot of dashboards, every day maybe you're looking at what everyone else is submitting, or you've been to our previous teardowns, you can kind of see that this dashboard in particular is different. That it really takes the reader and it walks them through. It kind of handholds them through. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we've done so far. Here's our next step. Why that matters, and that goes such a long way. That really takes away the pressure off. I see a lot of charts, and it's kind of my job as a reader to figure out why they are here, why they matter, why they make sense, why the insight that's on them is relevant. So I agree. I would say on the very, very high edge of good into and almost into stellar. Anything else to add on this dashboard? Because we are otherwise kind of coming up on time.
Just my usual request, and this is not for this dashboard, but it was nice to see attendance. We had up to 25 people at one point. We welcome feedback on these sessions, how we can make them more engaging, how we can make them more effective, how we can ensure that more folks put their methodology in its own section. Whatever it is, but I enjoy doing these. Big thanks to Elvis and Socio for joining us to share some of the insights from their review network. Really appreciate that. But please share feedback with us. We're going to, keep doing these in some context. So I would love feedback on how we can continue to try to make them better.
Thank you so much, Elvis, for stopping by representing Eager Beavers. Thank you, DJ, for your wise insights, as always. Everyone who's here, we'd love to send you some Xmetric. If you haven't claimed it yet, there's a form in the chat. Socio in the chat also is encouraging every one of us to actively participate in the Eager Beaver questionnaires that they run, and that they'll hear us. So we really appreciate that by the Eager Beaver Network. And thanks all who submitted your dashboards. Let us know your feedback, and we'll see you all again at the next teardown. Thank you so much all for joining.
Thanks, crew.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Our pleasure.
Maybe
Yep.
I can provide some feedback on the experience on my
Do
part.
it. Absolutely.
If this is easier to do, of course, if I prepare a single overview of the dashboard. However, doing this part by part, I was rambling. It's harder to keep it focused. So
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense. It's always nice to get multiple takes on a dashboard. So for that reason, it's kind of nice to have everybody. I mean, this is the challenge of review, right? If you have a bunch of people review every dashboard, then you get multiple points of view, and it's great, but it's also a ton of work for everybody. So comparing that to, it's much easier to focus on one dashboard, but then you only have one person looking at it. With that said, yeah, I do feel that maybe it makes sense for the next time we do this for each of us to take one and like dive deep and walk through that, and then for others to sort of weigh in real time. I would be comfortable giving that a try.
So it's actually a problem that I was posing, that what maybe to what you were proposing the solution, that how do we manage that we can keep it coherent, the speech that we are giving, or at least while focusing on small parts of the dashboard.
I can always set a timer and have it trigger like an alarm or a siren or something like that if anybody goes over a minute, and then we can throw eggs at that person.
Maybe, I don't know.
I have a problem with rambling too, so I'll think about ways to keep it on track. Honestly, I thought this session, we got through 4, which was nice. We had a bunch of technical difficulties early on, so if we can go through 4 or 5 in a given session in an hour, I generally feel pretty good about it.
Great. That's it. So thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Elvis. And yeah, definitely point taken on structure. We're going to experiment with that.
Bye.
Thanks again, everyone.
Take it easy, everybody.
Bye.